Hey girl, it's good to see you. How have you been? The He is miracle food. It's the best for detoxing, cleansing, healing, removing inflammation, and boosting your immune system. It's suitable for all ages, and it helps me out tremendously during pregnancy. Allergen-free, gluten-free, 100% organic, all-natural, and vegan. Chakradoctor.org. 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 818-429-1675.
5 course meals, that's us. We the inventors of the science and mathematics. We the inventors of astronomy and astrology. Cushion Egyptian, ancient African DNA. It's all in my biology. Hope my people are proud of me. I'm just setting the light on a lot of dark places in our society. Minds covered in poverty. Universal creator, hear me, cause I'm praying for you to get us out of it. Wicked nations run by the corporations.
Tell me a little bit about Pomona, because I think people would assume that y'all was from like Compton or some shit like that.
Yeah.
But y'all was from Pomona. So how far is that? More
Pomona is about 35, 40 minutes away from Los Angeles. It's the last city in LA County.
Is it north, south?
It's east.
East, okay.
Yeah, it's east. And you would consider it being like its own Compton, but 30 minutes away from Compton. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it has its own politics. It has its own drama. It's very, very small. Right. You know what I mean? But it can
very black.
Black
people in Pomona.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I grew up with predominantly black people. Right. Blacks and Latinos. Yeah, that's all it is blacks and Latinos primarily. Right. It's a town that you remember like back in the 80s. When all those cities were starting to build factories out and all the people from the cities moved out to these cities, but they're really city people that go out there to work and they move their families out. You could buy a home, but it's the same politics. You're still in the working, and then a lot of those places went away, and then when the crack area hit, a lot of those factories and stuff closed down, just like everywhere in America in the 80s,
I was saying where I grew up at in New Rochelle, it's the outskirts of, the Bronx.
Right.
That, you know what I mean? Like literally like 10 minutes from the Bronx type of shit.
Yeah, exactly. It's like that. It's like a small, if you look at Compton, it's like a smaller version of Compton in South Central, but it's the same politics, like far as the same drama, the same gang element, the same drugs, the same ghettos, the same, you know what I mean? It's just smaller niche, you know?
Right. So you coming up in Pomona, it's smaller and, you coming from this musical family with your father made music, your uncle and all that, but you still was a street nigga. Tell me about that. Like how,
because when you feeling yourself, we come from a time frame. If you feeling yourself, get the hell out the house. You know what I'm saying? So,
okay.
Yeah, so I was feeling myself at like 15 years old. You know what I mean? My whole thing was get money. You know what I mean? I'm not from the time frame where parents carried you on and kept the titty in the mouth, all that time. So it's like, hey, you either gonna get a job, get out, do what you're gonna do. Oh, you want to run the streets with your partners? You want to do this? You want to do that? I chose to run the streets with my partners. The fortunate thing for me, it happened to be my crew from above the law that I was running the streets with, Right. So it was, we started hustling at a young age, 16, 17 years old, just hustling, just trying to find our way. And
I said, what's the first thing you hustling? Weed or you straight to the crack?
No, when I first started hustling, I was hustling crack. The safe hustle always was weed, though. So when I wanted to do a cool hustle, I hustle weed, because when I first started hustling, the quickest way to get money, like I tried to work, Jamar, I tried to work, what I mean? I tried to work, like, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. But then I seen all my partners pulling up in fresh cars at 17 and big truck jewelry and fresh J's, you know what I'm saying? The fresh fly, Lecoq sport tees, the eyes.
I want some of that. I wanted some of that.
So a couple of cats, older cats, hooked me and my partners at the same time, you know, with some work, and then we started grooving from there. You know, we wanted it to cool off. Like we had weed spots, you know, we had dope spots. You know, we had a decent crew that where we control like two parts of our cities. You know, one was like a dope spot, one was like a weed spot. You know, so depending on how you want, you know, crack when crack came, crack scared the hell out of me because I ain't never made so much money so quick. You know what I mean? that was ridiculous, man. That hustle, that ain't for nobody. When you got pregnant women coming up there wanting to buy crack, and you know what I mean, you grow a conscience and shit, like, you know what I mean? It's like that shit scared the shit out of me. You know what I mean? So I'll never be a person that advocates, you know, how the 80s was, like how people make 80s so vainglorious and so fly and so this. Yeah, the side that I was on in the mid late 80s, that crack game, when that crack game came, it was crazy, you know. And I did it. I hustled hard as I could in the 80s, you know, for a long time. So
how did the violence elevate pre-crack to post-crack? How did the violence elevate in Pomona?
Well, I think when crack came, I think the sad part about the crack era was it changed Black economics, right? But it also caused a lot of violence because with the gang culture involved, then you're talking about territories, you're talking about a lot of people beefing over money that are just straight up on some vigilante. It was no thing about what people don't understand about the crack era. There was no Gambinos running it. There were no like cartels running it. Like, you know, you could go to your homie, you go to your homie and get $100 double up and become, you know, the kingpin of your own block in like 30 days. You up on your own bird in shit, probably like, you know, a month and a half. You running your own shit and nobody stepping in and saying, hey, because it's so much money flowing around it, you know, you can't stop it. You know, there's nobody can, and there's so much dope was coming into the country at that time. Somebody had to sell it. So they was passing it off to the little homies like it wasn't nothing. And it wasn't even regulated. You know what I mean? It wasn't regulated by a mob or, you know what I mean? It never was regulated. That's the only thing I think that came in the history of street hustling that wasn't regulated by a big, you know, conglomerate, you know, organized crime. You know, it was so many crews that were organized. You know, you had, at that time, you had the Freeway Boys, which is Freeway Rick. You had, you know, Whitey Enterprise. You had all these other different little small little dope crews coming up on their own right because they was plugged in, you know, with whoever they big homie was getting so much work. He was just practically just hitting every block and passing it out to everybody, you know. And we had the South Central connection, so we were always good. We always had the best work. We always had, you know, we always was popular. So if whatever we was doing, we was circulating, you know, practically, you know, as a young crew, we was circulating in our city pretty heavy, you know what I'm saying, in our area, you know.
I always, you know, when I was young, I always used to be like, yo, how does a motherfucker find that first connect? Like that used to be like really hard. Like, damn, I wanna, you know what I mean? But nigga, I would do it, but I don't even know a nigga. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it's funny because if you hustle with the right group of cats, you're gonna be connected anyway. You know what I'm saying? It's just gonna be too much work around. It was just too much. Like I think after like a year after I hustled, we were so plugged in that we had multiple connects. You know what I mean? There was nothing. I mean, you know, we could get it local, we could travel an hour away and get it. It was crazy, man. The 80s, people don't know that the crack era changed a lot of people's financial situation, you know, like just reflecting on it. And if you remember in '86 when they did the big law, a lot of the OGs got locked up. So a lot of the young cats was really coming up between '86 and '89. That's when that whole new wave of a bunch of young hustlers came up.
Right.
You know, unlike in the beginning between 84, you say between 84 and 86, that's when a lot of the OGs had to reign, you know. Then when they started tearing motherfuckers off with Buck Rogers dates, then the young homies had to take the sack and run with it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And a lot of us didn't have cases yet. So it was easy for us to become the man and, hide behind the scenes. And they didn't really know because then it became vigilante world. And that's when, to me, when us as youngsters, we took over in the 80s, that's when a lot of the, the killing went on. A lot of the crazy shit went on.
Because since it was almost like every man for himself, because like I said, at one point you had to like kind of have a plug, but then at one point, like in New York, you don't need a plug. All you got to do is you drive up to Washington Heights and niggas gonna run up to your car like, yo, I got it, papa. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And you could have got
you were getting middle guys with so much work that you thought you was getting middle guys, the middlemen that were kingpins.
Right, but here's what this leads to. So now you got dudes who are just freestyling. Mm-hmm. They came up on their own. They started to get big money. They're not really protected like that.
No.
Now the Wolves is looking at.
That's when all the robbing. Remember, Jamar, when all the robbing was going on. Remember when cats was robbing D-boys and
Robin, D-boy, look, Rich Porter and all those type of dudes.
Yeah, that's what trips me out about how it was so much money that cats would. Man, let me tell you something, Jamar. I know Squares was making millionaires, man.
Yes,
dudes that you wouldn't even ever think would be involved in that dark side. You know what I mean? So I won't say I've seen it all, but I've seen enough to retire. I've seen enough to retire. I've seen enough to know that when we created Above the Law, that was our escape, to get out of the game. Unfortunately, it didn't come as quick as I wanted it to come. Because here's the crazy thing about that. When NWA ended up going on the Straight Outta Compton tour, right? We were still hustling. We was a prospect to be signed to Ruthless Records, but nobody had came with the work or the money. Right. So Laylaw and Eazy-E and Dr. Dre called me and the crew and was like, y'all need to stop selling dope. And we was like, well, shoot, we making a lot of money every day. If you could match what we making every day and you could show us that you actually gonna sign us, then maybe we'll stop. They invited us out on the tour, and then we seen what was happening. 6 months later, we were signed to Ruthless Records, and we were developing, living like, actually recutting Living Like Hustlers, because we cut Living Like Hustlers demo ourselves with our dope money. So,
wow,
yeah.